Welcome to this flight of the Retail Pilot. I'm Ken Pilot, former CEO and current brand advisor, investor, and board member. I'm thrilled to share with you some of the insights from retail's leaders and legends, as well as my perspective on retail today. This podcast is sponsored by the following. Want to drive more traffic and conversions on your e-commerce site? Brands that use video see 41% more traffic from search engines. And that's just the start. Meet Firework, the leader in AI-powered video commerce. Trusted by brands like L'Oreal and Unilever, Firework turns any page into an immersive, shoppable experience. From pre-recorded long-form content to short-form and everything in between. With Firework, you can easily integrate social media videos into your product pages and run pre-recorded digital showrooms with shoppable content. Plus, Firework offers AI-powered virtual assistants to personalize shopper experience and drive higher conversion. That's why I'm an investor and advisor. Learn more at firework.com. Welcome back to the Retail Pilot. Joining me on today's flight of the Retail Pilot is Gregg Renfrew, a pioneering entrepreneur best known as the founder of BeautyCounter and most recently, Counter. She has reshaped the beauty industry by championing clean, safer skincare and cosmetics. Launching BeautyCounter in 2013, Gregg led with rigorous ingredient standards and advocacy for cosmetic safety reform, mobilizing a large network of consultants and consumers. After selling BeautyCounter to the Carlyle Group in 2021 for $1 billion and experiencing a leadership transition, she reacquired the company in 2024, reinventing it as Counter, with a renewed mission for transparency, clinical efficacy, and sustainable packaging. Renfrew was recognized for her dynamic leadership, legislative activism, and dedication to empowering women entrepreneurs. Her continued drive advances safer beauty standards and creates impactful opportunities throughout the industry. Gregg, welcome to the Retail Pilot.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you again. In researching this podcast, I can't tell you how impressed I am with your journey, where you started, what you did, and what you are about to do. So we'll jump into it because we have a lot to cover. Tell us, what was your aha moment that led you to pursue clean beauty?
So there wasn't one aha moment. There was about a 2-year period during which I became really aware of the fact that there were toxic chemicals in my life. And it started with me watching the film An Inconvenient Truth back in 2006. And it was the first time that I really came to realize that I was doing things as an individual that were detrimental to the health of the earth. That film really was a wake-up call for me. And so I started becoming involved with the environmental health movement. And over the next 2 years, living in New York, having children, thinking about this, I also started to watch so many of my friends get sick. I mean, you do too. We all know this. I always say, there's not a single person with whom I have a conversation that isn't touched directly or indirectly by the health issues we face today. And so I had friends struggling with fertility issues. I had friends being diagnosed with different types of cancer, women and men. I had a lot of my friends had given birth to kids with pretty significant health issues. And so during this sort of 2-year period, I started to wonder what's gone so terribly wrong with the health of the earth and human health. And one of the things I could point to was our exposure to toxic chemicals. And so with that in mind, I started making a lot of changes in my life. I switched from plastic to glass. I started taking my shoes off at the door whenever. And now I've kind of given up because my kids just never listen to me. But, I really tried to remove, change my household cleaning products and blah, blah, blah. But when it came to skincare and personal care products, and honestly, I'm not someone that came from the beauty industry and I'm not a big beauty junkie at all, but I wanted skincare and personal care products that worked. And at the time, prior to my launching BeautyCounter, I couldn't find anything. I could find all of the traditional brands that we've all grown up with that were, sort of on brand, on trend, aesthetically pleasing, high performance, but filled with certain chemicals of concern. Not everyone, but most of them. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I was looking at all these eco, sort of all natural or claiming to be all natural brands that were arguably better for the health of the earth, but didn't work very well, didn't look very good, just weren't good enough. And I thought there's an opportunity here to bring high performing products into the market package them in a way that's, really covetable, aesthetically pleasing, and also make them significantly safer for health. So that's kind of how it happened.
And you founded the company, but as you mentioned, prior to doing that, you had experience in sales and marketing. You found
Mhm.
wedding lists, which you sold to Martha Stewart. So you had been around beauty in a larger sense, branding, sales, and marketing. And I assume that really gave you the added energy and tools that you needed to build a brand.
Yeah, I think that, I started in an advertising agency right out of college, quickly got out of there because I literally was racking up credit card debt and had no idea how I was going to pay myself. I think I was earning like $19,000 a year. Went to sell, went to work for Xerox because they had the best sales training program in the world at the time. And then subsequent to that, started working in sort of different areas of retail and fashion, et cetera, which was something that I was always excited about. So over, the years that preceded, that preceded the wedding list, and then obviously BeautyCounter, I did really focus on building brands, building businesses that had at their core some relationship to women where they could empower women in some way or another. And I've just always enjoyed that. I've always enjoyed working with women. I've always enjoyed the building of brands from nothing. I mean, you know this because you've been in the industry forever. It's nice to see people enjoying your product, enjoying your brand, watching how people are intersecting, you know, with the products in stores and all of that. I just have always really loved it.
So you came on to the beauty industry out of a need, out of something that you identified, and you decided to disrupt it. What were some of the greatest challenges or hurdles you faced as you were beginning to build BeautyCounter?
Well, first of all, I literally knew nothing about the beauty industry other than having been a consumer of the industry. I always say, like, if I had $1,000 to spend, I'm going fashion all the way. Like, I can't help myself. I just love clothing. Although now that I've gotten older and now that I've worked in the industry, I've come to really appreciate beauty products. But before, I grew up on the East Coast, like, I don't mean, I barely ever wore my mom never wore makeup. Like, I was like a Solar Cane ad, constantly sunburnt. Um, so that was challenging because I literally had to start cold calling friends. I remember calling a friend of mine who worked in the hair care division of L'Oreal to say, do you know anyone else that knows anything about beauty? And so one conversation led to another. So I think right out of the gate, it was challenging because I didn't have the experience within beauty. Although I think in some ways that blind naivete is actually allows you to come in and disrupt because you don't look to the past. You just kind of have your blinders on and you're moving forward. That was really challenging. I think also trying to understand how to best meet the needs of today's consumer. And when I say today's consumer, I mean back then where a lot of people were purchasing online. But when it comes to skincare and cosmetics, there's a side of people that want to see the scent profile. Does that match my skin color? And I was having a conversation with Bill Guthrie, who started Guthrie Renker, and he was like, yeah, it's really hard to start to get initial purchasing online. And so I was trying to figure that out and decided that we had a story to tell, and that story would be told predominantly through women. But that was really hard because it was like, again, another thing I'd never done. I was used to traditional retail and e-commerce. And so I'd say pretty much everything that we did from day one was going against the grain, counter to industry standards, and pretty difficult.
As you were implementing changes to product and making sure that your product was made according to safer standards and staying away from chemicals that were detrimental and dangerous. Not only were you selling online, but you were spreading the word and selling through a team of women versus opening up in stores. Talk to us a little bit more about your approach to getting the word out there to the consumer and how you did that.
When I started BeautyCounter, I really wanted to create not just a brand, but actually a movement for change. I really felt that the industry was ripe for disruption. And I also felt that there was certainly was not comprehensive and health protective legislation governing the industry on either a state or federal level. Like we had not, when I started BeautyCounter, updated a major federal law since 1938 governing the industry, and yet many tens of thousands of chemicals had been introduced into commerce. And, like the EU, for example, had banned or restricted, almost 1,400 ingredients. When I started BeautyCounter, it was a whopping 11. And so with that in mind, I thought, we need to educate first. We need to arm people with information so they can make an informed choices. And that's really difficult to do on the shelves that are controlled by the incumbents. All the leading brands that we've all known, they don't want the story of safer ingredients to get out because it's not going to serve them well. And so a friend of mine said, have you considered direct sales? To which I was like, hell no, because I had a really bad, feeling about that business. It's sort of like, give me $1,000. I'm going to show you how to make 10. But when I actually peeled back the layers, I was like, well, this is actually really compelling. If we do this in a new and innovative way, we can build a direct-to-consumer business powered by people and the power of storytelling, whether that's happening one-on-one in a Starbucks or whether that's happening digitally through social channels. We have a story to tell and we can create an underground movement and sort of catch everyone by surprise a year or two later, which is exactly what we did.
I mean, I kind of think about Avon calling. I mean, I know that goes way back, but this was really a one-to-one sales experience with one of your sales associates and a potential customer.
It could be, but I feel like in some ways, everyone talks about people as creators now. I think that the BeautyCounter community were kind of the OG creators. I mean, they were predominantly selling through Instagram or talking about things on Facebook, or in the latter stages, they were talking about it more on TikTok. But I think that there was a physical component to it of people gathering over a glass of wine or whatever. But increasingly, it was migrating online. And I think, people think they have negative at times impressions of Avon, but before women had a right to vote, like they were creating financial independence or creating opportunities where women gain financial independence, through Avon. And I think giving women an opportunity, especially during those child rearing years, to earn an income and to be part of a community doing work that matters is something that I think that people should be really excited about and proud of, not something that people should be shying away from.
So a better way to think of it is you had a micro influencer group that could reach their customer however they best felt or that was profitable to them. That makes sense. That's super cool. You went through about a 7-year period building the company up 400 million sales when you sold the company to Carlyle. Walk us through the sale of BeautyCounter. What motivated and what was your vision for the company?
So from the beginning, I think that, and for people listening that haven't gone through this process, I think it's really, and you and I have discussed this a little bit, I think, when we last spoke, I think that people forget that back in the old days, when I first graduated from college, you could kind of open a store. And then over time, there was an e-commerce side of things. And then over time, you had a catalog. These things happened over time. Today, to build a brand, consumers want everything and they want it now. They want you to have a rich content engine. They want you to be on all your social platforms. They want you to have exceptional product. They want you to have an easy e-commerce experience, and they want you to be able to get it to them tomorrow, and they don't want to pay for shipping. And all these things happen concurrently. It's a lot to do. And so as such, I needed to raise capital when I started the business. So I raised some money from first individuals and then some institutions. And with institutional financing, as you know, there's a time limit on it. And, people want it, and as well they should, they expect a return on their investment. And so when we got to about the 5 or 6 year mark, having launched, I think it was in 2019, so 6 years after we launched, we were approached by one of the large strategic companies to buy the business. And I literally said to them, I was like, you're like the guy I want to marry, but like, I'm not really quite ready to get engaged. And I don't really love the ring, not big enough. And they looked at me like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, they're so buttoned up, one of those big conglomerates. And I was like, no, I'm just not ready to sell. But it whet the appetite of my investors. So fast forward to 2020, and we made the decision because I knew that their time limit was coming to an end, which was 7 years, that I was going to need to have a liquidity event for them at some point. And I made the decision, having read Bob Iger's book, The Ride of a Lifetime, which really was a pivotal moment for me reading that book, to go out to seek a financial sponsor, i.e. in a private equity firm, to purchase the business so that I could continue on with my work to ultimately take the company public and be a next generation leader in beauty. That was my goal when I sold the company. And I felt really good about the decision to sell to Carlyle because they had a really great reputation, and I had gotten to know the lead person there over a number of years, and they'd made some great investments in other brands. And I felt really good about that decision.
Things with Carlyle sounds like they probably started okay, but eventually didn't end that well as separated from Carlyle. What were some of the lessons you learned about your time working for someone else?
Yeah.
Buyer.
So it's funny you say working for someone else, because I think I had this conversation with a good friend of mine who has built an incredible fashion brand over the last number of years and highly successful business. You know it well. And she was thinking about selling the business. And I said, well, do you want to get a bunch of money, which is completely legit? You deserve that. You've built an incredible business. But when you do that, do you know that you will no longer control your brand? And so you have to be comfortable with that. Is it about the money? In which case, like, do it. But if you think you're going to sell a controlling interest of your business and then be in control anymore, you're not. And I think one of the most valuable lessons for me, but I think for everyone, and it happened also when I sold to Martha Stewart, is that when you sell the majority stake in your company, you aren't in control. And you need to, as an entrepreneur, founder, CEO, or individual, kind of like marriage, you need to read the fine print, because you might feel like hot, madly in love in the moment or whatever, but like life gets hard, right? And I think that I learned that, like, really paying attention to the details, really understanding what you're signing up for. And this wasn't Carlyle's fault. I think I didn't really understand what it meant to put debt on the business, because we'd been in this sort of bull market where everything was going up and up and up and consumer was on fire. But I didn't really understand what would happen if things didn't go as well. So that was one huge lesson. And then I think when they made the choice of the person they brought in to replace me as CEO, which happened very quickly, I watched someone with arrogance do things that were detrimental to my business because they thought they knew better. And I think if I've learned anything, is that in life in general, there's no place for arrogance, but certainly in business, if you assume you know more than the people that built the business and you don't listen to their institutional knowledge or seek to gain the context on a decision that doesn't make sense to you at the time, not that they did everything right, but I think you're doing yourself and the business a real disservice. So, and I've done that. I did that when I went in to work for Tommy Hilfiger and Susie Hilfiger on Best & Company. I didn't listen to Susie. And that was a real learning because I got fired. And I think that I was arrogant. I came out of the wedding list. I was arrogant. And now I'm not. I come into it with a level of humility and understanding and seeking to learn from others.
After about 2 years, BeautyCounter goes bust. I mean, really, how did you feel when that happened? It was your baby, but it was taken away from you. What was your emotional state at that point?
Well, I think that in the fall of 23, the board asked me to come back in as CEO. And that was a really difficult decision because I kind of had just gotten over it and was moving on with my life. And I thought, okay, I've given it all I can and it's no longer in my hands. So what will be, will be. But then they called me, the head of the board said, will you please come back in as CEO? And so in February of 2024, I came back in as CEO. And Carlyle really was, in fairness to them, trying to find a home or financial sponsor. Like, they didn't, no private equity. We can always paint the private equity people as the bad guys, and sometimes they are, but like, no one wants to lose money and no one wants to see a great business go bust. And so they brought me back in, and then they quickly made the decision no longer to fund the business because at that point it was no longer profitable. And I think they could see what I couldn't see because I was too emotionally connected to it at that point to see objectively that the business was kind of broken. And so I felt all the feels. I felt anger, frustration, sadness, depression. I mean, it was hard. It's hard to watch something that you've worked so hard at go away. But also, I think so much of my identity had been wrapped up in this business, and that was hard to let go of. But at the end of the day, you just have to look at the facts. And the facts were that the business was no longer working and we were in breach of our debt covenants and we were forced into foreclosure. And so I had to accept that, as did they. And it was an unfortunate situation for all of us.
And with that process, how long did it take you to realize that not only did you still want to do the business, but you wanted to run this business differently, get back into the game and take it in a different direction and launch Counter?
Well, in a total moment of insanity, obviously, I decided to do it. So I was on spring break with my 3 kids and my husband, and I got a call from Bank of America, and they basically said, like, we don't have a deal, and this company's going to go into liquidity in 4 days. It's Sunday night. It came through my lawyers. But you're an entrepreneur we respect, and you created a great company, and we'd like you to have your brand back if you want to buy it back. And so I sat with my family My youngest daughter, Georgie, started crying and she just said, Mom, you've worked so hard. You just can't let this die. Like you created the entire clean beauty movement. Like you can't let this company go away. And so many people love their products and there's so many people that depend on it. And so, we kind of dove into our savings. I called a bunch of my old investors and within 48 hours, we pulled together the money to buy the business literally in 48 hours. And then I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like I literally had a full blown anxiety attack. Like, what have I gotten myself into? And like, why am I doing this to myself again? But I felt like there was more work that needed to be done. And that chapter just was not yet closed for me. I had a lot more that I wanted to do.
Can you share with us one acquires a business for when it's in foreclosure?
I'm not going to disclose the exact amount, but it was, a tiny, tiny fraction of what we sold it for. I mean, just a tiny fraction of it because, it's a distressed situation. So, people are,
movie.
Yeah, cents on a dollar.
Let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Looking for a 3PL that's truly next level? Cart.com is a 3PL on steroids with nationwide distribution centers and the most advanced AI-driven software solutions from WMS and OMS to TMS, all designed to streamline your entire delivery process. With Cart.com, you get a fully integrated commerce platform that unifies your operations, data, and customer experience all in one place. Their platform combines physical distribution with cutting-edge AI, empowering retailers to scale faster and more efficiently. Whether you're D2C, B2B, or omnichannel, Cart.com connects your tech stack, simplifies your logistics, and powers your growth from click to customer, enabling distribution for Janie and Jack, Portland Leather Goods, Tom's, and many more. Cart.com. Today's podcast is also brought to you by Simulate. Search has changed. Today's shoppers don't type keywords, they ask questions, full sentences, 35 words on average. Legacy search engines can't keep up, but Simulate can. Simulate's the first AI-native commerce platform powered by Commerce GPT, built to understand intent, not just match words. That means smarter results, fewer dead ends, and higher conversions automatically. Visit Simulate AI, that's with a C, Simulate with a C, to see how context-aware AI is reshaping commerce in-store and online. And today, we are lucky enough to have a special offer, 20% off your first purchase at BeautyCounter, and use the code PILOT20 and enjoy your purchase. And we're back. Gregg, why the name change from BeautyCounter to Counter? What prompted that?
First and foremost, I never was completely in love with the name BeautyCounter. You know this, but it's so hard to get a name because everything's owned by everyone. And we used the name BeautyCounter because it was the intended double entendre of going counter to the beauty industry and introducing like a new type of way of selling on, on iPads or on phones. And that was sort of the new BeautyCounter. But I felt coming back into this that everything needed to feel new and innovative if we were going to ever create sort of white space for this brand and lead again. And so one of the things that I found to be extremely limiting during the years that I ran BeautyCounter, especially because we had men's products, was that people didn't want the word beauty in the name. And we've always wanted to go counter to industry norms, and we're doing that again. But it also afforded us the opportunity to be a little bit, maybe there's an adjacent product we wanted to sell, or maybe we just wanted it to feel gender neutral and more modern and new and fresh. And so that's why I decided to change the name. And also, I wanted an honest nod to the past, but I also wanted to let go of some of the past. Like the past is in the past now, and this is a new company. It's a new day, and we're serving people in, hopefully new and innovative ways. And I felt like it needed something that felt fresh, both from the name standpoint, but also the branding and the packaging. I wanted it to all be new.
I assume that part of your next phase, you still want to bring along many of your BeautyCounter fans, your customers, still a big opportunity for them to participate in the brand, as well as new customers. What would you say is the greatest change or the greatest pivot from BeautyCounter to Counter?
I think a couple of things. I mean, first and foremost, at the end of BeautyCounter's life, we were heavily distributed through Ulta, who were fantastic partners and just really were very, very good to us. And we'd enjoyed relationships with Target and Sephora and Ulta over the years. But I think that I really wanted to go direct to consumer. I wanted to control the entire experience from start to finish. And that's not to say that there may be a point in time where we want to go back into retail distribution. But right now, I really wanted to completely sort of have the ecosystem, the community really be tight. And if we do go into retail, which we have like our own one shop on Nantucket today, it would be our own retail. So that was a pivot. I think the other thing is that we wanted to imagine, we were really trying to figure out how do we serve today's consumer? And the creator model now and sort of the big influencer model, maybe it's reached its peak, but the micro influencers and allowing them to distribute products in the way that they feel comfortable, not serving one single brand, but being able to represent things that they love. And we've seen that in the rise of companies like Shop Mywood, who I've known since before they launched. And I really wanted to create different opportunities for women and men, but predominantly women. And one of the things that I learned in the last company is that people entered into our business and represented the brand for a whole variety of reasons. Some of them wanted to earn money. Some of them wanted to go to DC to advocate for cosmetic reform. Some people were just product junkies. And some people just wanted to be part of a collective voice in a community that was doing great work in the world. And so I think in this new iteration, we've taken away the team models. There's no levels to it. You are acting as an individual, but you can participate in the community as we roll this out in different ways. And you may be remunerated in different ways based on what you want to get out of the opportunity. And so I think that personalization of the opportunity will be really interesting for us in the months and years to come, because I think in general, everything in sales is like a one size fits all. You sell something, you get paid something, but that's not always why people are doing it. And I think that's going to be new in this new business.
As we discussed prior, you are looking to get out in physical retail. You mentioned have one store in Nantucket. Another way to get in front of the customer that wasn't as much of a priority for you. Sounds like with BeautyCounter, you were focused on wholesale distribution and then your sellers.
When I was running BeautyCounter, we had stores in New York and LA and Denver and Nantucket, and we did that. We had a whole really robust pop-up strategy. When the new CEO came in, he made the decision to do a big rollout within Ulta. The way that I look at it today is we have a group of women, predominantly women, called brand partners. I don't know how many we have today, but somewhere around 15,000 women, and they really want to build a sticky relationship with our brand, and they really want to participate in our community and our community efforts on advocacy and others. And then we haven't yet rolled it out, but we will be rolling out an affiliate model for people who want to have more of a slightly more distant relationship with us, but still would like to represent our brand as they see fit. And I think those can all coexist in the community. I think it's really important, even in today's very digital world, to have the ability to meet up in person. And look, I'm old school in this way, but I think that the touching and the feeling, and women like to go through a store and they want to interact with people and they want to learn. And certainly for things like color cosmetics, it's great to be able to try things on and have that relationship. And the community that we had before and the community that we're building now will have the opportunity to utilize those retail locations. And again, I don't know where they're going to be yet. We're looking in New York City right now, but I think the idea to have a place where you can physically meet in a predominantly digital environment and community is really, really valuable.
You mentioned that with BeautyCounter, Ulta was important.
Well, we already have a relationship that we've enjoyed for over a decade with Goop. Gwyneth has been a friend for a long time and has been a huge advocate of what we've been doing. And so we've always been distributed through Goop. And as their retail presence has grown, we've been there. I think that, look, you can't ignore Amazon. And we have like a sort of gray market Amazon business that's been substantial over the years. And unless you go on to Amazon, you can't undo that. And so that's something that we might consider for the future. But I would agree, but also disagree with you that the fastest way to get to consumers is through retail, because one of the things that I think is really powerful is our community and their ability to amplify our products like that. And in Success back in the day, we were able to reach like 11 or 12 million people within 5 seconds with an asset and an ask. And so I think that there's something about, women tend to listen to one another. And so I do think that retail and wholesale is important, but I think the power of community, especially with brands today, should not be underestimated, and their ability to advocate for products. I mean, every woman asks a friend, like, where'd you get that sweater? Where'd you get that lipstick? Oh my God, I love your shoes. And so the ability to use, sort of these micro influencers, these original creators as a way to acquire new customers and then to service those clients. Like that is something that's been super effective for us in the past. We also did for the first time try a direct mail piece, and it just hit people's homes last week. And we've been enjoying some success with that because I think that you know this better than anyone. You need to hit people through a variety of channels to reach them. It's not just a one and done. They got to see it 4, 5, 6, 7 times before that resonates with them. And so we're looking at a whole bunch of things, but you know this, Amazon's going to be the biggest beauty retailer by the end of the year if they're not already. And so I think that brands not paying attention to what Amazon is doing, that they should be.
Are you looking at technology to help you fast forward the journey? And it's got technology obviously is in a much different place now than it was in 2013 than when you launched BeautyCounter. But what does technology mean for you and where you want to go?
Well, I think that the kind of always on mentality that people want, that we all are unfortunately tied to our phones 24/7. And so the ease of use of me getting in front of you and saying, okay, vitamin C serum before, like, here you go, here it is done, we're out. So I think that really making sure that it facilitates sort of seamless and tension-free transactions on the go 24/7 is really, really important. And so I think that's one piece of it. And then of course, like any company, and it's hard for us as a company that's been so focused on sustainability, where does AI play into that? But I think you can't ignore where things are going. And so, and I'm not a technologist, and this is one of, you asked me earlier in the podcast, like, what are some of the biggest challenges? I think for me is understanding how to best utilize technology and to keep up with where technology is going because it's moving so quick. And I'm a dinosaur at my age anyways. But I think we're looking at how do we utilize technology to advance things and make things easier for our clients and our sellers.
One thing I think is important to look at, especially with large language models, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, is how does your product begin to show up when customers are searching offline? That's becoming more and more important. AEO stands for Agentic Engine Optimization. Search engine optimization used to be and how important that was, or SEM, search engine marketing. Now you'll hear the acronym AEO and GEO for generative engine optimization. Same, AEO and GEO are the same, but it's how your product will communicate with the bots that are out there so they can find you and provide search results to customers looking for clean beauty. And it's the biggest game changer right now I see happening in retail. And just this week, Walmart announced a partnership with OpenAI, instant checkout on ChatGPT. The instant checkout on OpenAI is going to be something that's so huge. So I think that's going to be a big change for us over the next year. I'm just putting that out there.
No, it's super interesting and things are moving very quickly. And I think, for all brands, beauty or anything that's interacting with a consumer, you need to be on top of where things are going because their needs are ever changing. And if you're not serving them in the way in which they want to be served, like, you're going to be left behind.
Obviously, the company is really launching this year, so probably a little premature to talk about international, but I assume that's in the plan somewhere. Did BeautyCounter resonate internationally?
The old company was only in the US and Canada, and we're still in the US and Canada. We absolutely do resonate internationally, and we have a pretty strong following, for example, in the UK, but also had been approached by a bunch of companies throughout Europe and also in Australia. I do think that we need to get out of the United States. Hopefully, my goal would be that by late 2026 or certainly early 2027, that we're at least in the UK, if not farther beyond, because I think having an international presence is important. It's harder in skincare and color cosmetics than it is in, say, clothing because of all the regulatory differences from country to country. It's a cumbersome process, but I think it's an important one.
Where is your product made?
Predominantly in the United States. When I started BeautyCounter, I really wanted to make a decidedly American brand. It was important to me, having watched so many great companies take everything offshore to make products in our country, to create jobs in our country. And so, which has been nice for me right now with all the tariffs that have been imposed. We get certain of our packaging and componentry products out of Asia because they're literally not made in the US. Like, for example, you can get tubes in the US, but you can't get an airless pump in the US. Like, we don't even make them. It's not even a cost situation, but our manufacturing partners are almost exclusively in the US, and they're in states all over the country, California, Idaho, Texas, whatever. We've been working with it, but I really like having things closer to home. It also gives you more control because you can get on a plane really easily or get in a car and drive over there and meet with them. And honestly, I like working with American companies. We source from around the world. I mean, our ingredients come from everywhere, but we do try to make everything in the US. Our glass comes from Mexico, and North America to me is, that's a good thing.
What new categories are you looking at for expansion as you continue to build business that perhaps weren't part of BeautyCounter? Are there categories that you are now looking to lean into that you didn't?
We had the SKU proliferation under the most recent leadership was pretty significant. And so the first thing I did when I decided to do this was to really downsize and to look at the top 50 SKUs that were driving over 90% of the revenue and really give this woman that we're serving, who's an older woman, she's sort of 35 plus or 40 plus, products that she loves in skincare and color cosmetics. With that said, there was an inordinate amount of work done to bring fragrance into the market that was clean, because fragrance is one of the places with the fragrance loophole, which exists in terms of legislation. You can be protected under international IP law and not disclose the ingredients that go into fragrance. And fragrance, because of phthalates that bind the scent to your skin, can be one of the most toxic things. And I always say to people, if you're shopping the market, shop fragrance free. And so I think for us, we actually launched at BeautyCounter the last month when I came in, fragrance, it wasn't up to my standards in terms of the scent profiles, and they launched a lot of them, which I think we could just stick with one. But I do think fragrance represents a huge opportunity for us. And so we're working hard to bring that into the market. And I think there are some other adjacencies, whether that's, ingestible beauty that we could consider over time. A lot of people have done it. But I want to stay focused on bringing products into the market that are truly exceptional, because as you know, people will try anything once, but you want someone who comes back over and over and over again. So I want more vitamin C serums and products like our Dew Skin, which is our tinted moisturizer with SPF, where it creates a cult-like following, and it comes and they just come back to you over and over and over again.
Not to call out competitors or create competitive strife, but if she is shopping at fill in the blank, please go to counter.com tonight. We have something for you. Who's the blank?
Well, I think there's some brands where we have crossover with brands like Westman Atelier and Gucci's a friend. Bobbi Brown, when she launched Jones Road Beauty, she's also a good friend of mine. I think we have some crossover there. I think we have some crossover with Rhode, more in like lip products than skincare. She's also shopping Clarins and Estee Lauder, and it's a prestige price point brand. So I think we have crossover in all of those categories. I mean, I think like at the end of the day, you're never going to control 100% of someone's, like you're never going to have 100% of the share of wallet, right? But can I get to 80%? Can I get to 75% of your spend? I also I love certain products from Goop, and Gwen is my friend. Like, I'm unapologetic about the fact that I use certain of her products. I mean, I've talked about them publicly. Like, I think there's room for multiple brands to be out there. But I think that, and people always say, oh, you're competing with clean. I don't think you're just competing with clean. I think you're competing with high performance, on trend, aspirational products that people covet. And that runs the gamut. And so for us, it's like what I try to focus on is what are the merits of the brand that we're building, not worry about it, and applaud those that are also doing a good job creating clean. Because I think for me, one of the opportunities that I have right now is to create a definitive standard for clean. And one of the frustrations I have with competition is that they're claiming to be clean, but they're not actually clean. And so that part of it is hard for me, because they might have a slightly better, I don't know, whatever shade or performance or whatever it is, but they're also using all these chemicals that are concerning for health. And so I'm trying to focus on, how do we differentiate ourselves with our commitment to clean, with our leadership position, and really creating covetable products.
Would you ever consider a marketplace portion of your business, a product that you don't carry but augments or complements what you do?
We have absolutely considered it. We are considering it. We did have it for a period of time. At BeautyCounter, we had something called Clean Slate, which were brands that we loved, that we knew were doing the right thing in categories that we didn't sell. We had David's toothpaste, and we had, I don't even remember what else we had at the time, but it was other brands. And I think that there is an opportunity to do that in the future. Right now, I really want to get the brand back out there, or not back out there. It's a new brand, but get this company out there, get ourselves established. But I think I know all the founders of all these brands, and I know which brands are actually really working hard to be clean. Companies like Goop and True Botanicals and others that aren't just claiming clean on their labels, they're actually doing the hard work. And so to create a marketplace, they would have to meet our standards, but it is something I've considered.
You must have found it somewhat challenging to go back to some of your vendors who help you put together, or your factories that help you put together BeautyCounter and build product, and perhaps lost money with you, and get them back on board. How did you win them over?
Well, first and foremost, I think that, I started every conversation with like, we're kind of in a shit sandwich, and not of my doing and not of yours. So let's just start with it, acknowledging that we're both in this really compromised situation. I think that people who took a chance on me when there was no such thing as clean, when I was telling them this was going to become a thing, that they had the opportunity to do really good work that mattered in the world and earn a lot of money doing it, they saw the growth of not just the industry, but their own company's growth, because a lot of people were trying to find out who was manufacturing BeautyCounter's products, and all those brands, they all went to our people, and they're like, make it like BeautyCounter, make it like BeautyCounter. And so I think that a lot of people appreciated the growth and also believed in me. And I think that I went into it with a level of humility to say, listen, I'm asking you to take a chance on me. I can't pay you what was owed from the old company. I didn't create that problem, but I can promise you I'm going to work really, really hard to create another incredible opportunity for you. And I think like all of them came back, and so many people wiped the slate clean. There were others took 10 or 20 or 25 cents on the dollar, which is extraordinary. And I owe them all a debt of gratitude. I really, really do, because they took a chance, not once, but twice on me. And in doing that, I definitely refined the number of people with whom we were working so that I could become important to them, and that they were going to actually earn real money for letting go of that past debt from the old company and taking a chance on with me this time.
Well, I think that speaks to your success as an entrepreneur, as a builder of brand, as a leader, a smart business person, to win back their trust and get this brand established. I would think that that would have been the most difficult part of making the transition, getting those who potentially lost money or a lot of money with the prior company back on the train to help you produce Counter. And I'm sure it's you that they invested in.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm confident in my abilities. I don't take it for granted that we're going to be successful. We've enjoyed some early success, but these are early innings. I think the hardest thing, honestly, in the transition, when I made the decision to shut the company down because there just was no clear path forward, and then leading up to launching, was really the hardest thing of all, was having to let go of the associates that had worked so hard for the old company, and having to do it in a way where they weren't getting any severance because there was no money left, and then letting go of this community of women who built their lives and businesses on our platform, and having to deliver unbelievably harsh news to a whole lot of people. That was one of the hardest things for sure, not one of, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my professional career, because you're letting down people and their lives. And that, anyone that was involved with BeautyCounter, they've been on a journey with us, and that journey has not been easy. And so I'm most appreciative of anyone that's continuing to support the brand as a client, who's continuing to support the brand as a seller, and continues to support the brand as a manufacturing and supply chain partner. I mean, those people, I really do genuinely owe them a debt of gratitude.
What would you say are your key lessons?
I think over the years as an entrepreneur, the thing that I have really think that oftentimes is not paid enough attention to is that you really need to know as an entrepreneur, where are you genuinely really, really strong? Like, where can you just say, like, I am absolutely fantastic at these things. I'm really weak in these other areas. Like, I'm never going to be good at math. I was saying this to my children last night at dinner. It does not come easily to me. Like, even today, looking at discounted cash flows and, contribution margin, all these things, like, it's just not a strength of mine. I have vision. I can anticipate where things are going. I can connect with consumers. I have a high level of emotional intelligence. And so I'm very good at the forward-facing ideas and the connections and the brand building and all that. I need really strong support around me on the operational and predominantly on the financial operational side of things. I can understand supply chain. I think that's one of the things I don't think that entrepreneurs value enough. And that goes back to arrogance. Like, are you humble enough to understand that you're not very good at some things, and bringing people around you that are smarter and better than you are? That's what's going to make you successful. And know that it takes a village. It's not about you. It's about that collective team working really, really hard at something. And I couldn't do that without the people around me. And, like, it's just, that's one of the most valuable lessons. And then just not being arrogant, being humble. Oh, and one other really good lesson that I always thought I gave my friend of mine that actually, who has a child, some kids that have gone to the university that your son and my daughter had been at St. Andrews. And he was saying, like, oh, this company's valued at $4 billion. And I was like, buddy, you're not worth a single dollar until it's cleared your bank account. You can be worth a gazillion dollars on paper, but until that money is sitting in your bank account, you better not talk about it or spend it, because it's actually not there. And that's another thing. Like, if you talk to seasoned entrepreneurs, they'll say, you wouldn't cut off your right arm for what you're worth on paper, because that's actually oftentimes doesn't come to fruition. So there's a good one that I've learned.
I like the fact that you have a good sense of where your strengths are and what you need to hire.
Yes, it's important.
Last question. What advice would you give to women entrepreneurs who are raising money? What challenges did you face? What should they know that maybe male entrepreneurs might not face?
I think that oftentimes we as women look at ourselves going into a capital raise as a liability versus being a woman, thinking about being a woman as an asset. You're going to go into rooms that are typically filled with men. 90% of the time it is a group of men, and occasionally there's a woman at the table. And oftentimes they're going to say, I'm going to talk to my wife, my daughter, my sister about whether or not I like this product, which always makes me laugh. But I think that what I hope women can do, especially young, and I mean young in age entrepreneurs or less seasoned entrepreneurs, is to know that this is a two-way dialogue. You're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. There is way more capital to be deployed than good ideas and great teams. And if you go into that knowing that oftentimes they're going to underestimate you, and you're listening to what they're saying, you can actually surprise them with your intelligence and your capabilities. And so I think that, when I go into meetings, I do so with confidence. And if I'm not being treated respectfully in that meeting, I'll leave. I'll say, what, I don't think that I'm your person. Let's just end this meeting and move on, because I know that there's a lot of money that needs to be deployed, and there's someone else out there that's going to believe in my vision and going to believe in me. And if they aren't the ones, like, that's okay. And I joke about this with some of the male VCs and private equity firms that have turned me down. And I'm like, well, that was a really bad decision. We were the greatest performing, company in the portfolio of TPG growth, and not fun. Like, next time you won't underestimate me. And by the way, you're not going to get that second chance.
That's like in Pretty Woman when she walks out of the store. That just says to the sales guy, right? Big mistake. Search holding up all the bags. That was great.
And I do say that to certain people when they're like, oh, can't believe, I can't believe I didn't invest. I'm like, I can't believe you didn't either. But, I don't say that with anger. Like, I say it in jest, but I do think women need to go into these conversations with confidence, and then often just exude confidence. And sometimes they shouldn't be as confident as they are, but I give it to them. They go in confidently.
That's why we're eliminated from all the cool women's groups that are out there. There are no guys groups that they're all like, there's deal makers and there's this women's group. There's not for us. No one wants to hang out with us. Anyway.
We do. But actually, all joking aside, again, the thing is that I'm a really pro-women woman. I believe in powering up women. It's like the thing that gives me the greatest joy. But I would not be where I am today without a whole bunch of incredible men that have helped me along the way. And I think that we have to do this together. We need more balance. There needs to be more equal representation of women in all of these rooms, but not because men are the bad guys, because often women are the ones that are hardest on one another. It's like, how do we do this together? How do men help power up women? How do women power up each other? And then how do we move forward as a team?
And how do I get to join some of these women's groups that are doing all the cool stuff? I got nothing going on. I don't want to play ping pong tonight. Okay. All right. We're going to close with rapid fire.
Okay.
All right. What are the 3 beauty products you can't leave home without?
Our Counter Glow Hydrating Mist. I think it's called something else, but it's the mist from Counter Glow. My vitamin C serum from Counter is just amazing. And my Dew Skin Tinted Moisturizer with SPF.
who would be an ideal brand collaboration?
Redone. I really want to do something with Redone because it just feels perfect for what we're doing right now.
Got a lot of that floating around my apartment now. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, it's a good brand. They've done a great job.
Very good. Favorite streamed show?
There's so many. My favorite stream show, I think this show, what was it called? Drops of God was probably the best show I've watched in years.
Season 2 is about to come out.
I mean, just thought that was incredible.
I love that.
Every bit of
I
it.
agree with you. Only 8 episodes too. It's very easy to, good rainy weekend, you take it out.
Yep.
Who would you most like to meet? And that could be dead or alive.
Dolly Parton. Total badass. I've never had the opportunity, but God, is she amazing on so many levels.
If you weren't running Counter, what brand would you love to run?
Definitely a fashion brand. And I don't know, maybe Redone. I'm a jean girl. I love blue jeans and I love old Levi's and I love everything that they're doing.
And with that, we'll end this flight of the retail pilot. Gregg, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's flight of the retail pilot. And please give us a review on your favorite podcast platform.